to start that.
Yeah.
Park District website. If your camera is on during the meeting, your voice likeness and surroundings will be publicly available and viewable on the CCFPB website. If you choose to speak with your camera off or by calling on the telephone, only your voice will be recorded. So I'll formally call the meeting to order now. Just of note, if anybody is interested, the in-person portion of the meeting of this hybrid meeting is being held at 1108 11th Street, Suite 303, and online through Zoom. I'll do the roll call. I'm present. Hugh Beatty.
Here.
Ed Grumbine.
Here.
John McLaughlin is excused, and I haven't seen Hugh show up yet, but if he's there, somebody let me know.
You mean John Hymas?
John Hymas, I'm sorry.
I called him, but I did not reach him.
Yeah.
I also called, left a message.
Okay. Well, we can do what we need to do if he joins us, and we can do what we need to do if he doesn't. The agenda has been presented. I'd like to hear a motion for approval. We got that from somebody. Who was that? Ed, great. You want to second that?
Yeah.
Great. So moved and seconded. Any further discussion of the agenda? Hearing none, raise your hand and say aye if you approve it. There we go. So the agenda is approved unanimously. First, we'll have public comments. We'd like to acknowledge our legal counsel and secretary that everyone I think here already knows. And any public comments, we have several members of the public here, Linsa, and of course, Christopher Granis are here. Linsa, you raise your hand, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to let you know that I've been contacted by Pat Burnett, who is the new president of Happy Valley Neighborhood, suggesting that we plan a party or celebration of the 100-acre wood saving. And so a few of us have been emailing just about the idea, and including the presidents of South Hill, South, Happy Valley, Fairhaven, and we haven't hit Edgemoor yet, but also, so Brooks Anderson, the president of Happy Valley, has asked me to be the person from the Fairhaven Neighbors Board who would be the liaison. And she also suggested that we include the business district, the historic people. Mm-hmm. So we're still in the planning phases. And this morning I went through my computer archives and sent out, and I CC'd Hugh because I just sent out the documents that I had from when we did the party 5 years ago. And Hugh Beatty was the instigator of that party, according to my records. Yeah. And his name is, like, if you have any questions on the poster, call Hugh at this phone number. So I found a list of friends of Fairhaven, friends of the forest and who to thank. I found the Celebrate Your Neighbors plan for that day, which was 2 to 4 p.m. music with McHugh Boys, Prozac Mountain Boys, guided walks with Todd Ellsworth and Michael Chavario, and then 4 to 5, Dean and Dudley Evanson were going to speak, keynote address by Dan Pike, and then open mic. And then 5 to 7 was a potluck supper with music and fun. So during that open mic, I prepared a speech. And so I found a copy of that thing, June 2, 2018, where I just said 2 pages worth of thanks to everybody, whatever. And then I also found the timeline up from 1990 up until 2018. So I saved as PDFs and sent those out for the people who didn't remember the history. So if anybody wants, Hugh got a copy, and if anyone wants any of those copies and then help with planning, I suggested, hang on, Robin, I suggested that we plan this party for after September 24th so that you commissioners can participate and feel free to speak as private citizens, as opposed to commissioners who have to, be careful what you say. So,
Well, we just can't meet. That's the.
well,
that's
and
the
you can't meet,
problem.
exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's what I just wanted to let you know. And if you want to add it to your meeting agenda later or whatever, you feel free.
That's wonderful, Vincent. Thank you so much. And we need to let the record show that John Hymas is with us now. And thanks for coming, John. And we're just having a public comment portion, so you haven't missed anything except the approval of the agenda. And just to say, do you have any additions or deletions or corrections in the agenda items?
No, I don't.
Awesome. Thanks, John. So Vince, I just want to really thank you from the bottom of my heart for not just for thinking of this party, but all the years of work you put into this. It's really, you're a force of nature in this effort. So thank you so much. And it's so thoughtful of you, exactly what I'd expect to, be thinking ahead to this and to plan it at the right time and the right way to make it both legal and uplifting. So
Thank you. It wasn't my bright idea this time, but I'm happy to help. Okay.
I think I speak for all of us, just say thank you. And I think we'd all be willing to help in any way that we can. So thanks. And we can certainly put on the agenda for next time to see what we can do in terms of additional support. And in the meantime, anything that you think we can do, please give us direction. And anybody else, let's see, we've got a number of other people from the public here. Christopher Granis, did you want to say anything tonight?
Well, I thought I'd come tonight just because out of loyalty. I mean, it's been a long slog and we're getting real close. So here we are. Thank you all for everything you've done.
Well, much like with Vincent, I think we have to say thank you to you too for your stalwart participation for many years. So we're all here together as a team, and that's it feels good to have that moving towards a sense of closure.
Yeah, I have to say Christopher's the one who twisted my elbow to run for commissioner. So
Oh,
as
thank you again,
thank you.
Christopher.
And thank you for doing that.
Hey, I got a question talking about commissioners. Has anybody ever endorsed any candidates as a commissioner? Because I've noticed, all these people that are running for various offices love to have elected officials endorse them. And I thought, well, we're the tiniest little elected officials there is. I thought I would do a few this year. So any objections?
I think we'd have to defer to Bob on the legalities, but my understanding is it's perfectly fine for you to endorse anybody you want to. We as a body, I don't think should endorse
No,
people.
we shouldn't as a
Certainly as
body.
individuals, I certainly think we can. Is that right, Bob?
Correct.
Good.
Yeah.
So I encourage you individuals to endorse somebody if you can, because there's some good people running out there and a close little primary coming up here.
All right, well, let's look at the agenda. We've got the stewardship of the 100-acre wood updates. There have been some things that Bob has sent out. I hope everybody's had a chance to look at those. Ed's on the agenda, and so am I for that. And I've got an update of the various people I've talked to. Bob, do you want to? You did send us some things. I hope people had a chance to look at it. There's a number of things there. So, do you want to speak about the issues that have come to the fore in your discussions with the city? I think
I can do that. I'd like to first start with, does anyone have any questions about what I sent out? Did everybody have a chance to read it? I did hear from Ed and okay, I see John nodding. Hugh, did you have a chance to read it? Okay.
Yes, I did.
Frank, you as well, I take it.
Yeah, probably for the record, Bob, just to mention what it was that you sent out, the confidential memorandum. Is that
Yeah.
that's
And
what
so
you're
I don't know that, because it's confidential, if we start talking about the details of it, then it quickly loses its confidentiality.
right? So just to I just wanted to be sure that that's what we were talking about. It wasn't something else. So
Yes.
that just of note, everybody should have if you haven't had a chance to look at that, please do it now so that we can be informed for our later discussion.
And it does sound like everybody has. I saw an affirmative response from everyone. My report would be fairly short. I did send you all a copy of an email from Alan Mariner. I did speak with him today for two purposes. One, to see if he had a feeling on whether we should wait for Gabe Epperson, the Land Trust Executive Director, to return from vacation before signing the assignment. The Land Trust could sign the assignment with someone else signing. We'd have to interlineate his name out of it. And Alan did indicate that he thought it'd be a good idea to go ahead and get that signed by the Land Trust without waiting. And that's fine with me. So at this point, the remaining task there is to have the assignment signed by the Land Trust and to obtain the funds from our treasurer, the county treasurer's office. And once that happens, we can record the first amended conservation easement and the assignment per the agreement that we reached with the city and the Land Trust. As to the issue of whether or not the Park District Board has the authority to enter into a third-party contract with an outside environmental group or a scientific group to study or monitor something like water quality or vegetation, or do an amphibian study, which I think were the three things that we talked about at the last meeting. I do believe the board has the legal authority to do that. Having said that, I strongly recommend that the board only do that in cooperation with the city. And if the city is not interested in that, then my recommendation would be not to enter into such a contract, because any contract will end up with the city based on not only state law, but also our interlocal agreement and the agreement we just entered into with the city and the Land Trust. All assets and liabilities of the district will go to the city of Bellingham upon dissolution of the district. Any contract that we enter into would be under that category of probably both an asset and liability in terms of the rights and obligations under the contract. And it makes little sense to enter into a contract that would probably have to be administered by the city if they didn't want to do that. So that's my recommendation.
Bob, I don't think we were considering doing that, so I think that's a fine recommendation, but I think we can move on with the discussion. If that's okay.
Okay. That's good. Thank you. I just giving my report, and I thought that you did want to hear that.
Thank you.
So that is my recommendation. And if the Park District does want to reach out to the city, I think it's probably best done informally, and not through really, I don't think the attorney, i.e. my office, needs to be involved in that discussion with the Parks Department. And I'm also thinking that it's the sort of understanding that could be reached informally. We could talk more about that if you have questions. When I spoke with Alan Mariner this morning, actually, he said, well, there was some concern. That's what his email said, and I tried to allay that concern that I didn't think the Park District was intending to do something without the city's support. And I think he didn't say so exactly, but I think he did appreciate hearing that. And he did want me to know that, and he said I could relay this to the board, that he felt that based on his discussions with the Parks Director, that she felt the funds coming after dissolution would best be spent by the city as it had been planning to do, that what its plans were probably the best bang for the buck for the 100-acre wood, including in terms of protections. But when I talked to him further about that, I said, I understand that, but would she be, the question is, would she be willing to talk to a delegation, as it were, from the Park District? And I said, in my experience, that Nicole is willing to listen and open-minded, and I thought that it might make some sense if the board decided it wanted to do that, to schedule a meeting with her. And he seemed open to that. He said he would talk to Nicole about that when she got back from vacation. And I think that pretty much sums up where things stand on this topic.
Well, there's more information that I'd like to present when you're done.
I'm done as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
So I went ahead and talked with both the land trust representatives and reached out to potential people that might want to do this work. And I tried to reach out to Nicole, and she is indeed on vacation. And I'd love to talk with her when she gets back, just to continue to move in that direction. The land trust, I talked to Rand at length about it, and he was pretty supportive and enthusiastic, I think, with the same caveat that Bob gave us, that it needs to be something done cooperatively with the city, which I totally agree with. I think the difficulty is in maybe picking who it does, who this is done with, in terms of the people that might do the work. That's one challenge. The other is there certainly is precedent. The Lake Whatcom watershed has regular water testing for water quality that guides city policy. It's something that they do, and is a reasonable thing to do, I think. And they've contracted with the university to do that, with Robin Matthews and her group, and then the subsequent group that we talked about last time. And so I think, it's certainly a discussion worth having. Water quality is a critical issue for the health and well-being of the community forest. And I would hope the city would want to do that, but we'll have to find out. The other group that I talked with, I did talk with the tribe and had a discussion with Northwest Indian College and the person, Emma Norman, who does their the environmental sciences program at Northwest Indian College, and they are interested in doing it. It's a logical group to have do it, in that they do have an interest in the salmon, and one of the main functions of the wetlands, in addition to the on-site benefits, are the long-term benefits to both Padden Creek, Chuckanut Creek, and Chuckanut Bay, all three of which receive the waters from the wetland. It's a particularly dry year this year, and there is a marked lack of flow in a lot of those streams. And I think some kind of monitoring to ensure that they remain a viable source for salmon and the many other useful, beneficial reasons that we want both water to come from them and that it to be high quality water is I think fairly clear to everybody. So there's not the process of approval within Northwest Indian College is complex. It would be an issue where we would need to kind of write up a proposal. They would need to take it to their board. They would need to plan a budget and carry it out. They're interested in pursuing that. And so if we want to continue to work with them, that would be one thing. I'd hope to talk to Nicole about if they have preferences about who should do that work, and it might be that they would want I believe it's the Institute for Watershed Studies at the university. That's who they contract with for Lake Whatcom. It may be that she doesn't want to do that, that she wants to spend the money on physical things with trails and things like that. But I think if that's the case, we'll need to have a discussion about that with her to see. And I think it should be a board action, of course. So that's the report that I have. Bob? Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one more thing you said that brought something to mind. When I was talking to Alan Mariner today, they're saying, well, to what end why would we do this sort of monitoring? And he was a little questioning what the point of it would be, and would it lead to requests for a more regulatory approach? And I gave him the example of water quality, which we had talked about at the last meeting, and said, knowing more about water quality, for example, is a good thing. And he said, well, why do we collect data just for the purpose of collecting data? And I said, well, if we collect data and if it's good data, and it turns out that there's some adverse impact to water quality happening, and we can identify that perhaps maybe a trail is contributing to degradation of water quality, that could be important information for deciding maybe to build a boardwalk or move the trail. And you could even possibly get grant money if you have data to support your requests for some things like that. So he did get it when I explained it in that way. But it's interesting that he hadn't even been thinking about it along those lines. And I think that's one of the things to emphasize if you do talk with Nicole.
Yeah, I certainly would. I mean, I don't think those are new concepts to her. One of the challenges I think in the agreement that we have is that it doesn't involve Public Works, who actually does a lot of this work in other areas. It would be, I think, very advantageous to have their input and their participation, in that they do a lot of that work in other areas. Is there more comment or?
Yeah, I think, I don't know her personally, but if somebody would talk to Robin Matthews and just get maybe a ballpark about what expense would be to set up a little sampling program for our little section compared to Whatcom Lake, it shouldn't be very expensive compared to what they do with Whatcom, but so that way we know what we're talking about,
Yeah, I don't recall, but I think that John mentioned that there is a new person running it. It's not Robin Matthews now, as I recall from our last meeting, but we can find out whoever's running it and certainly talk with them. And I think that's a good idea. I think we should have as much input as we can get from about specifics as quickly as we can, actually.
Yeah.
Other comments? Okay, great. I was just Googling in the background here, the Institute for Watershed Studies, to see who it is now. But there's their address and phone number. There's the people part. So Angela Strecker is the director now, and one of the professors and Robin is still associated with it, looks like. And then there's researchers. Yeah, so Robin might still be the right person to reach out to.
Yeah,
she has been there for a long time.
Yeah.
So I'll reach out to her later this week. Any other comments? All right.
When we were having the big rain on Monday, I was thinking it'd be interesting if we had a sample of the wash that comes off the streets. They always talk about the tires being hazardous to the baby fish. And I thought, well, maybe if we used our sweet sweepers before a big rain is coming like that, it might help to around the edges where the wash wouldn't get into the creeks. You know, it might be good
Many of
practice.
you may already be aware of this, but the parts of the tires that come off and go into the water is something that actually Joan Beardsley, who's at the high school, sorted out some of that and did some of the initial investigation of it. It's very interesting that a local high school group had a big impact on really understanding the biology of that. But yeah, we could definitely look at those issues, and when we talk to the Institute for Watershed Studies.
I was reading the Salish Sea Map project today, and they say on the rainfall and such that 80% of the participation is between October and April in our region. So we have that dry period where things definitely build up from driving.
Ed Grumbing, you were listed on the people to speak to this issue. Is there anything you wanted to say?
I reached out to Vicki Lawrence, who is the expert on herptiles, amphibians, and had done work in the woods when she lived in Bellingham. She still does work, but she's retired and lives in Arizona. And I mentioned, would she be interested in doing a survey of unknown design on the key amphibian species, and she said she'll think about it, and it's a good chance she would be interested in doing that next February when the breeding season occurs. I haven't mentioned it because it's all part of what we'd want to bring to Nicole in the city if we wish to do that. But she's considering it, and I told her to get back to me by the end of August at the latest, and she said no problem.
Great, good. Well, thank you for doing that, Ed. Great. The next item on our agenda is for old business is a press release re the conservation easement. So I think we're very nearly done with it. I think it is a good idea to have a press release about it. Bob, do you have an estimated time when this will all be actually wrapped up and a done deal?
I'm hopeful that that we, in terms of transferring, if you mean by done deal, transferring the conservation easement to the land trust, paying them the $75,000 and having the assignment recorded, I'm hopeful that it could be done by next week. Depending, one of the things that I've talked around a few times too, one of the things about logistics and trying to get it signed. So we're currently working on that. I'm hopeful next week.
Great. So that's a pretty tight timeline. It seems like we would want to do that, a press release about the conservation easement at the time that it's finalized. Does anybody have an interest in working on that project? John or Ed or Hugh?
I'm not much of a writer, but I would be glad to read through it and offer
Okay.
thing. Proofread it at least.
I can work on it with Robin and we can get something drafted up and out to everybody to look at. I think it's just an announcement really more than anything. And I think it could dovetail with the celebration too, Vince. It's it's not the only thing, but it's the major thing that a major accomplishment is moving us towards being done with this whole project.
Yeah, I can send you what I had written earlier. I'll forward that right now to all of you.
To Robin, yeah, okay, Robin and me for
Especially
sure.
Robin,
And anybody else you want to send it to is a great idea.
Yeah.
Great. And then dissolution of the Chuckanut Community Forest Park District, an update from Robin. Robin, where are we at on the dissolution work?
I had a meeting with Andy from the city finance director and Karen Thomas, the chief deputy assistant treasurer. and it was a really good meeting. And I detailed information that we clarified on the plan. A lot of it was just informational between us all, like learning what different people were doing and things like that. We're going to have another meeting coming up on, I think it's the 12th of August. No, the 21st of August, something like that. Anyway, we set it so we would have it before the next board meeting so we could go through things. And so I'll be talking to them more as I get more information. The audit has started, and that's going to be my major focus next week. And let's see here. Just trying to see.
Did you
if
already ask Bob about the
anything's-
contents of our box at the bank and
Oh, right.
where Bob, are there things that our documents go to the city, or could we donate them to the archive at the university about this issue, or how does that work out? Is there where's it our responsibility to dispose of the documents, and which documents do we give to the city?
Yeah, so of course, there's no, this is such a rare event that there's no real roadmap developed for it. What I would suggest is that we turn over as many documents as we can to the city of Bellingham and let them take responsibility for the custody and care of them. And so I would recommend, Robin, that you that be one of the agenda topics that you raise when you meet with them, with Andy next time, and be specific about documents and see what they're willing to take and what they're not willing to take. And to the extent there are documents they're not willing to take, maybe you can let me know. And then if I think they should take them, I can talk with Alan Mariner. Alternatively, if there's something left over, we can send it to archives. But I think that the city is the one that's going to be responsible for what we have, and we'll see. We'll just have to work our way through that.
Yeah, John Hymas.
Yeah, nobody really had specific things when we met, except to say that everybody has different records retention policies. So I'm going to review those and then make a list of the documents I have. Yeah.
So
Documents from the early days. Yeah.
you might also want to talk to the Fairhaven Library. They have a lot of South Side history archives and stuff. They may be interested in retaining some of our records and stuff too.
There's a program at the archive at the university, the state archive at the university, that studies community movements and community involvement. And it's got a very large archive of projects around, for example, when the pipeline blew up, the community response to that and other community responses. And I'll be donating the documents from Responsible Development for 20 years to them about probably not long after we are done with this effort. And there's a lot of documents that I think I can't imagine the city ever wanting any of that stuff. And there may be things like that here too. Some of those would include items that are actually kind of hard to find. Somebody approached me about wanting a copy of the baseline environmental study for the city as a whole that was done. The city did it. They never published it, that Ann Isinger did. And so I think having that in the archive and other documents like that might be useful for somebody in the future to have a public place where those could be accessed. When we approach the city about that, they have some copies, and there's a copy at the public library, but there are very few copies of those documents still around. And I think they're still important and useful.
I think I have 2 copies of that. And also I have about 6 copies of the stewardship plan.
Mhm. Yeah,
I definitely like to make sure that whatever the city gets, that we send a copy to the Golds Murray Archives at Western, because it's always good when you're archiving stuff to have 2 different places in case one of them burns down, you know.
yeah.
I was telling Robin about, I think it was the 1910 or 1920 US Census, that he lost the whole thing because of a fire. And so they had 2 years worth of stuff and it was gone. I forget what year exactly it was.
One thing about the archive at that you're talking about there, Hugh, is that they do not accept electronic copies of things. They want everything to be paper. They don't believe that the ability to retrieve electronic things is durable enough that it would be useful, like a VHS recording, or if some of those things outdate the technology to access it. So what they do when they want copies, sometimes they'll take the electronic copy and make paper copies out of it, or the people that donated are asked to make the paper copies out of it. Same thing with photos and things. They don't want digital, which is kind of surprising. You'd think that Western itself does have a digital archive that they use, that actually is a digital place. So it depends on, it may depend on what the document is, the nature of the document, where it might be donated. And I don't know about Fairhaven Library, which kinds that they would accept. But that's the kind of thing that we're going to need to do to kind of move this through and complete our tasks. I think that's some of the work we need to do between now and September. And Bob, just to be clear, September 24th been mentioned, but my understanding, I thought, was the 22nd is when we actually sunset. Do you recall?
Great, because I thought it was September 21st.
My records agree with Bob, and that's what's in the plan for dissolution that came from the letter from the city, by no later than September 21st, 2023.
Okay, so we can do it earlier, but not after the 21st. If that's Bob, is that you're on board with that?
Yeah, we want to wrap things up by the 21st.
Yeah. And so we'll likely have a meeting next month and then a meeting in September, and a party somewhere in between.
We have a meeting set up for September 13th at this point in time. One thing that Hugh brought up when he and I were talking yesterday was just, the website. The city has indicated that they do want to take over the website and eventually archive it. And he was wondering whether we wanted to archive it to somebody else too, so it's not just with the city. And I don't know what you guys think about that, but I just thought I'd bring that up.
I think that there are many of our records have a legal standing, and I think those definitely need to go to the city. And if we want to make a copy for someplace else, I think that's certainly within our purview to do. It's not an exclusive thing that they're the only ones that get it. So I think it would be appropriate if we believe there's documents that could be better archived or differently archived or accessed to different people. We should have that in mind, I think.
I remember back in the 80, we never could find the city council minutes from when they upzoned that land,
They are indeed gone. I've looked myself, and Tip went all out looking for them. Sort of odd.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Frank, but I just have a couple quick questions.
Sure.
One just for Bob. I sent you a thing about dissolution paperwork from the state auditor's office, and it was a little unclear what we have to do for them, and they were a little unclear about what we have to do for them. And maybe if we just have minutes of saying we're dissolving at a certain time, but we also have to say when the final date of dissolution is going to be. So we don't have to figure that out tonight, but I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, my advice on that will be that we prepare a resolution when we're closer to the to the date so we can have the board vote to dissolve on a date certain. It doesn't have to be September 21, as long as it's by then. And a resolution in my mind is the best thing to do. That'll be an official record then.
Okay, great. And let's see. I was trying to see if there was any other things. No, I think that's it for me on the dissolution.
Any other old business?
We do have the
only other-
minutes still to approve.
Yeah, that was one thing. The minutes still need to be approved. And I just, before we leave old business, given there is little time, if there is a desire to have the city contacted, there should be probably some decision by the board as to who's going to contact the city and what some of the steps are.
About what, Bob?
About what we were talking about earlier,
So I've already reached out to Nicole, and I've already reached out to North Indian College, and I've already reached out to the land trust. This would be something different than that you're thinking?
Well, I don't know that there's been any board action on it, and I think it would be good. It'd send a good message to whoever you're talking to that this is supported by the full board, or at least a majority of the board, that this is, that you're doing this on behalf of the board. I think that's a good protocol.
Sure. So does in the form of a motion, or do we need a motion to do that, Bob? Is that what you're suggesting?
I think it would be strongest if it came in a motion. Yeah, that would be the clearest support. So I do think that's worth doing, having that, basically having the board delegate that to the chair to explore the option of having some environmental work done in the forest funded by the district, and have that be the Northwest Indian College. And if that's the pleasure of the board, then I think that would be what should happen.
Okay, we had both the discussion about stewardship last time and a motion that followed that by Ed, which basically directed you to talk about some of those things. And but if we need another motion, I think we can do that. So it's much more specific now, I think. The land trust does support it. It is legal, and it is something we could do. So I guess if we want to move from that prior motion to a motion that's more specific, that's fine with me.
And just to be clear, the motion, and we haven't approved the minutes, but in the draft minutes, the motion was for me to evaluate the legality, validity, and efficacy of a third-party contract that would extend beyond the term of our existence,
Right.
and how workable that is. So that we've covered that now, and now the next step, I think, would be to if it's the will of the board, to go forward and contact the city about these ideas, and see where it goes.
You, John, or Ed, do one of you want to make a motion about that issue?
You're still muted, Ed.
The idea of a current motion, as Bob suggests, it sounds good to me. Discussion wise, we probably want to craft the motion in a way that allows Frank the broadest capacity to discuss with Nicole the several different projects we have. For example, Nicole and the city may not be interested in monitoring water quality, but they might be very happy to monitor amphibian populations, or vice versa, or something else. So the board never came to any strong sense of a prioritization over those three and maybe other potential monitorings that might occur. So I'm not suggesting that the board has to decide now between those different ideas, but we may want to reflect in our upcoming motion to give Frank as much leeway to discuss a variety of ideas, and then let the city and Frank work out what might be priority.
And I'm happy to have anybody else that wants to join me.
I'd be happy to join you.
Hugh, have you got thoughts about this?
You're
You're
muted,
muted.
still, Hugh.
I'm a little hard to get around anymore, but I like the idea of talking about the amphibian study and the water quality study in particular, maybe a coliform study, coliform, just to prove how pristine the water is there, all the dogs. So
And John, you have thoughts?
Yeah, I like the idea, and I'm not sure how much money would be going that way, but sure, I'll go along with the board on that. I think that there are gaps in the there's gaps in the baseline study, you know, that Anne even said, you know, this and that need more work. And no, I'm all for that. Whoever wants to take it on is great, you know. So I would vote for a motion.
Ed, do you want to formulate a motion? Could you think that through for a minute and maybe suggest how we would phrase this along the lines that have been discussed?
Sure, let's try this as a draft.
Lost you, Ed.
You froze, Ed. Ed, you're still frozen.
Potential projects that the city would be interested in doing going forward.
Ed, I'm sure you were eloquent, but you were frozen the entire time.
Until the very, very end.
It was a cold.
That, please.
That was a draft message. We need it again, I'm afraid.
So what would you like me to try again on?
Oh, you froze from when you first started to speak until just now.
Oh, I didn't even see that on my computer. Let's try it again. I would make a motion that the board approves the chair and any other board members willing to join the chair in meeting with Nicole and other city staff to discuss potential monitoring that may occur in the woods after commission dissolution, and in an effort to search out potential pathways for partnership on a certain number of issues to be determined in conversation. Using money, using any costs to be covered by the funds that we still have in our budget going forward.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Few seconds. Now, is there further discussion at this point? Yeah, Hugh.
Oh. I would say, for example, just have something concrete in the resolution.
You were breaking up a little bit there. Could you repeat that again?
I would say resolution should say something concrete like water quality and amphibian study, for examples.
Well, I would lobby against more specificity just because
You're frozen again, Ed, if you can hear us.
we so everybody's frozen except for me. Oh, there we go. Now we're back in action.
Yeah.
And so I guess to respond to Hugh, I would say that we may not want to be specific because the city may have some ideas of their own that wouldn't be covered in the specifics of a resolution we put together tonight. So I'd like to leave it as open as possible in a fashion that the city might have ideas that they would bring to the table that would come out in discussion that we are not aware of right now.
With an understanding that that would, on our side, at a minimum, include discussing water quality, would discuss the trail issues we had mentioned earlier, and discussing the amphibian study that's what we'd put on the table, and then they could bring up other issues as they see fit. That sound right?
I mean, there's no reason to be specific, whether you list what we might want to have or whether we might leave room for what they want to have. Just say you're getting together to talk about potential studies. So
yeah,
it's open, and we don't need to be specific because we're going to have that. We'll bring the specificity to the discussion from the issues that we've already discussed as a commission.
I was just needing not specific, but just as examples,
Yeah.
I don't, just so that somebody outside reading this thing would say, oh, okay, I see what they mean.
If I could add, this will be, this is recorded, so there is a good record of discussion of what we do have in mind. As examples already. I don't know that they actually have to be in the motion for people to still get the sense of what the board's concerned about. You're
sorry, I'm just unmuting. I apologize. There was an urgent issue here at my house.
We didn't know.
Did we get a second to that motion, Robin?
Yes, Hugh seconded.
So we're in this discussion phase then.
Yeah,
Okay.
right, exactly.
Can I bring up one idea that I had about this kind of thing?
Sure.
I was reading through the new baseline report that the Land Trust put out, and all those photographs that they had, and I can't tell much at all about looking at the report, what those tiny little photographs look like. Is there a way that they could be viewed better? Would money help with that?
You might be able to, if you open the document on your computer, Hugh, you can potentially enlarge it there, and I could help you with that.
Oh, okay.
And
I
I
just-
think that
I
was
thought-
an effort to document the current conditional land, but also I think the borders, the edges of where it's at. It was the physical markers delineating the space, I think.
Yeah. And I still think it would be a great idea to just go through there with a GoPro every 6 months or something and record the trails and then go back 6 months later and just archive that stuff, you know, and then you'd have a real good idea of impacts through time.
Well, we're still free as individuals to engage the city around these issues, and I think many of us will. And so I think that's a good idea, Hugh, and we should encourage other people to participate in that as well. The city has a process for that, and we should engage with it. John, did you raise your hand? Okay, so do we have a resolution we're ready to vote on then?
I think we do. Robin, do you have it down?
I have it mostly down, but I definitely have it on the recording.
Yeah.
It says, move that the board approach the chair. Yeah, no, I have it in shorthand. Sorry, I can figure it out. But do you guys need me to figure it out and say it again?
Well, let's just for clarity, I'll try to repeat it, Ed, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, the motion would be for the president of the board and any other members that would like to attend, reach out to city staff and officials to discuss the possibility of our providing specific funding for assessments of water of a variety of issues. And I think the subtext there is including, but not limited to, water quality, amphibian studies, and trail impacts, to reach a joint agreement about what studies should be done in the future.
And it also included using costs to be covered by the park district.
Right, exactly. So that's the sense of it, I believe. And Ed, are you in agreement that's the sense of it? Great, good. So then we can take a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous. All right, we still have a fair number of things to do. The
minutes to be approved from the last meeting.
So if people had a chance to look in under old business, we did have the minutes in the document that went out to everybody from Robin. Did folks have a chance to go over that? And are there any additions, corrections, or things that should be omitted from it that aren't correct? Give people a chance that haven't looked through it to take a minute to look at it. Do I hear a motion for approving the minutes from our prior meeting from June? June 28th.
I move we accept the minutes from June.
Second.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Sorry to almost speed past that. Now I got to get back to my agenda for this meeting. Just a second. Okay. If there's no other old business, we can move on to new business. There is a copy of the baseline report from Whatcom Land Trust. It's not meant to be the kind of baseline report that has been done before. It's a summary, a very high-level summary of the location and the to describe the parcel that they're accepting the conservation easement on. We need a vote to accept that report if people had a chance to read it and review it. I'd like to open it for any for a motion to approve. We get a second and then we can discuss it.
I motion that we approve the Wacom Land Trust baseline report.
I hear a second.
Second.
You seconds it. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye and raise your hand.
All right.
Hugh, I didn't see you.
Oh, there was one little thing
Okay.
I didn't make a footnote on it. I should have maybe, but remember when way back we had the guy from Fish and Wildlife on our early Treasure Beyond a Measure thing talking about the fish and stuff. And this report now says there are no species of concern mapped on the property. And I think he did some looking around there on the property way back, and made some comments about the fishes.
It was quite a while ago, and it did show that there were, I think there were cutthroat trout that actually spawned in the in the beaver pond, and he had actually videos of that at the time. So
I remember those 3
It
spots.
also says that there are not any, there are no streams on the property, which is actually true because the stream that goes to the beaver pond isn't in the Chuckanut Community Forest. It's actually in the adjacent land trust property. So there are seasonal streams, and I looked at that fairly carefully, and I think it is accurate in that respect. The same thing with the spawning fish. Those occur. Those were documented to have occurred, but they're not on the property we're talking about. It's in the adjacent property the land trust already has an easement on.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor of accepting this report, say aye and raise your hand.
Hey,
Looks like another unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Then is there any other new business?
I had one thing, John Hymas, I need to coordinate with you on this Secretary of State report that I'm working on. Can I call you after the meeting? Or we could do it. Really.
How about if I call you?
Okay. Yeah, call me. Great.
Okay.
If you could call me tonight, that would be great. But
Right.
it's not very complicated. I just need your help in resetting the password and stuff because everything comes to you. So.
All right.
We'll talk.
Okay.
Thanks, John, and thanks, Robin, for doing that.
Okay.
The final items here are the monthly expenses and cash flow sheets. The petty cash WECU is as of 6/30/23 is $2,917.11. Treasury report is that we have as of 6/1 $284,029. The unencumbered the ending unencumbered balance as of 6/30 is $275,644, and we received tax revenues of $369 and paid $8,757 in operating expenses. We need those are reports. The thing we need a motion for is with regard to the approval of district payroll input forms for wages for Robin for 23 and a half hours in June, with a total growth of $587.50. Do I hear a motion and a second?
I'll move approval.
I second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, say raise your right hand, say aye.
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 Unanimous it is. The consent agenda is motions to approve of the following payments. Payment due June 15th, 2023, invoice 04094 For Carmichael Law for professional services, $8,318.50. Payment for July 11th to the 2023 invoice, $35,423. For the Whatcom County Administrative Services for second quarter 2023 payroll services of $30. And finally, payment of the 13th of July 2023 invoice L 155957 from the Washington State Auditor's Office for the 2019-2023 audit of $320.25. Do I have a motion to approve those?
I make a motion.
Move.
Moved and seconded, I believe Hugh and Ed in that order. All those in further discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Reminder that Robin will send an email to 3 board members right after the meeting, John Hyma, Hugh Beatty, and Ed Grumbane, and please respond confirming that you approve the paying of the bills as listed in the consent agenda and payroll. Our next regular meeting will be August 23rd at 6 p.m. This meeting will be held via Zoom as well as in person at 1108 11th Street, Suite 303, above Fairhaven Bicycle. If the door is locked downstairs, a phone number will be posted on the door for you to call to be let in. Anyone attending the in-person portion of the meeting is required to wear a well-fitting mask per the commissioners of the Chuckanut Community Forest Park District as voted on the October 26, 2022 meeting. Parenthetically, there is a pretty good rebound going on right now for COVID. Every July there is, and it is a significant issue for people that might be at high risk. And so I think we need to continue to engage in the approach we've engaged in so far. Hopefully it'll be over someday. At this time, the final meeting is scheduled for September 13th, 2023 at 6 p.m. With those announcements, I'd like to call this meeting to it. I'd like to adjourn this meeting at 7:13 p.m.
John Hymish has his hand raised.
Oh, John, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. John,
Okay.
please.
For the first time in years, you haven't asked me if I went to the Park and Rec Board meeting.
All right,
you went.
here's the question. I'm going to softball it to you. Go.
They started live meetings again, and I went this month, and everybody was totally thrilled with our coming to the end of this project. And it coincided with the vote on putting the greenways on the levee too. So no, and there were still a few faces there, you know, on the board that recognized me, and it was nice. I'm going to keep going. Anyway, just wanted to say that.
And thanks.
I'll put you back on the agenda, John.
Yeah, for the next couple of meetings.
2 more meetings.
2 more meetings. I should just let you guys know, I've had a long scheduled time off. I'm going to be gone, unfortunately, for our last meeting. September 1, I won't be back until September 20th. Again, this was scheduled a long time ago, and part of it is my oldest son's getting married during that time, and then part of it is we've got friends that have made plans a long time ago. So my last meeting will be the August meeting, but there are 2 other attorneys on the team here with me that are very well aware of what's going on, and that's Catherine Moore and Luke Pfeiffer. So one of them can attend the September meeting, and also, I'm sure, handle anything that comes up at the end after the end of August.
Thanks both for letting us know. And thanks too for your long service, Bob. You've been at this for a long time. I think longer than officially longer than anybody in the room. So thanks for your extended service, actually. And don't forget to come to the party.
Well, schedule it when I'm in town and I'll be there.
Right.
Try to do that. Vince, we should take note of that, and it wouldn't be a real party without Bob there. So
Yeah.
I would love to come. Thank you.
great, thank you. Well, with that, I'll actually adjourn the meeting at 7:16. Thanks, everybody. We came close to being on time.
Great.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.